This is the Louie T Network.
Man, I love some football. Man, I love some football. My favorite week is week 1, cause I'm watching football. First comes the preseason, and I don't take a day off. And then it gets even better when your team makes the playoffs. 32 teams go hard for one thing. They work for one thing. That Super Bowl ring. 32 teams go hard for one thing. They work for one thing. That Super Bowl ring. We in the lab room.
Louie T, welcome. You are in the lab room. Of course, I am your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Week number 14 in the National Football League, Thursday edition of In the Lab Room. I thank you for joining me. Of course, we'll get into some supply and demand later on down the line, but first, Thursday Night Football. Dallas Cowboys at 8-4, slightly outside of the NFC playoff picture, taking on the 5-7 Chicago Bears at Soldier Field. Last year, this game took place, and it was an ugly affair for the Dallas Cowboys as the Bears were able to ring up about 49 points or so. Josh McCown had a coming out party, 4 touchdown tosses. Bears did whatever they wanted. They did whatever they liked. Yeah, last year. And so it's got to be totally different this year. And this is a different Cowboys team, different mentality, different approach to the game mentally. I think the Cowboys are going to fare a lot better this year than they did last year. And to me, it's simple. There's not a lot of evaluating here in this football game. The Bears aren't a good football team. The Bears don't play any defense. The Bears aren't better than the Dallas Cowboys. It's as simple as that for me this season. The thing that's so frustrating about the Bears, okay, so the defense stinks. That wasn't supposed to be the strong suit of this team anyhow. The offense was supposed to be superior. That's why they brought Mark Tresman on to this football team, onto this staff, and made him the head man, because he was supposed to come in and do what no other coach has been able to do with Jay Cutler, and that's get the most out of all of that talent. Squeeze that drag dry. Squeeze that rag dry and get Jay Cutler to be the quarterback that he is supposed to be with all of that talent that he possesses. And Mark Tresman simply has not done that. They've got talent all over the place on that offensive side of the football between Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey. Never, ever trust a man with 2 first names. You've got Martellus Bennett at tight end. You feel like that should be enough right there. You sprinkle in some Matt Forte, and you're like, man, there's an abundance of riches there at wide receiver, at tight end, at running back. Their skill positions are ridiculous. They should be out scoring, 30 points a game, 28 points a game. That's not the case for this Chicago Bears team. They struggle to put points up on the scoreboard. And you really can't put your finger on as to why this is. You want to blame the offensive line. You want to blame the lack of a consistent running game. You want to blame Jay Cutler. But when you look at all of the numbers across the board for this team as a whole offensively, they're not that bad. There isn't one particular thing you can point to except for third down efficiency. This team does not convert third downs very well, and they don't get in the end zone enough when they get in the red zone. But you know what? This team just isn't very good. We saw it on Thursday against the Detroit Lions. They don't play enough defense. They gave up 34 to a team in the Lions that have been struggling to score points themselves. Lions were able to get right. I expect the Cowboys to do much of the same coming off of that beatdown on Thursday that they suffered on Thanksgiving to the Philadelphia Eagles at home, 33-10. I expect the Cowboys to come in, run the football with DeMarco Murray. The Bears don't stop the run. I expect Tony Romo to be able to throw the football all around the field. The Bears don't stop the pass. And I expect the Cowboys defensively to do enough. I don't expect the Cowboys to go out here and stymie the Bears offensively. I don't expect the Cowboys to do what they did to the Seahawks earlier in the season, which was basically put the clamps down on their offense and suffocate and smother them. I don't expect them to do that to the Bears. What I do expect the Cowboys to do, however, is to do more than enough to win this football game comfortably. I don't think the Bears are going to win this game. I don't think it's going to be all that close. I think the Cowboys win this one similar to the way Detroit won last week. You know, maybe it's close early, then they run away from them, and you never really get the sense that the Bears have a chance to win. Much like we felt on Thursday against Detroit. They were up early big. Once Detroit caught them and ran by them, you never really thought the Bears had a shot in that game. And that's how I see this one going, except I don't ever see the Bears jumping out to a lead in this one. I just see Dallas kind of steadying the ship early, kind of feeling out the Bears, and then just running away from them and keeping them at bay. I don't think it'll ever get to the point where it's just out of control. But I think they'll have a distance between the two teams where you'll say, hey, Dallas has got this one in the bag. Give me the Cowboys on Thursday night to get it done on the road, 30-17 over this Chicago Bears football team. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll jump into supply and demand. Welcome back to the program. Again, I thank you for joining me here on the Thursday edition of In the Lab Room, one of the fan favorite segments of the program, supply and demand. Again, love the feedback that I'm getting, and I got more feedback this time. And of course, granted, it's been a month since I've done this program, and I thank you for all your patience. Again, I just needed to recharge the battery. Took a nice little bye week, and I was trying to experiment doing some other things, so kind of got away from this. But this is the essence of what this channel is. This is the flagship program, and so you can never stray too far away from the actual In the Lab Room product itself. So I'm back and got a couple of questions. Last time we left off, there was a great what if given to us by Michael Kane. Everybody wanted to chime in because it was such a good what if. And I think I've got another solid what if coming your way, brought to us by another viewer. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But I want to jump into these questions first, and we'll get into the what if from the last time we did this, and then we'll jump into the new what if at the end of this segment. So first question given to us by CF Coasters. He asked the following: which teams in each conference do you think has the best team chemistry, even if they're not good teams? First off, I think team chemistry and good teams go hand in hand. What you'll find is with the teams that are the best in the league usually have some of the best team chemistry. You go to the New England Patriots, Brady and Belichick, B&B winning factory, has been together for over a decade. Those guys know each other. They know how to get it done, and there's a lot of chemistry there. Now, you can look at the roster itself and say, hey, there's a lot of turmoil, there's a lot of turnover. in terms of the roster. A lot of guys weren't on this team a season ago that are helping this team win now. That's very true. But at the core, it's Brady, it's Belichick. Those are the guys that you expect to get it done. You've got Wolford on the defensive side of the football. But if you're asking me to pick out a team in each conference that has the best continuity, that knows what the other guy is thinking before he actually thinks it and does it on the field, I'd have to say that the Green Bay Packers in the NFC probably has the best continuity. You look at that defense, a lot of those players have played with each other for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. You look at the corners, Sam Shields, drafted by the Green Bay Packers, has been there. Tramon Williams has been with Green Bay probably since they won the Super Bowl, maybe even the first time they won it in 2010, I believe it was, 2009. So they've been together for a while. You look at Hawk, you look at Matthews, those guys have been together since they've been drafted. So you kind of see that there's a nucleus there, there's a core on the defensive side. You go to the offensive side, same thing. The offensive line may be in flux a lot of times. I think they've kind of figured out what they want to do offensively on the offensive line. But you talk about the skill positions. You talk about Rodgers. You talk about Nelson. You talk about Cobb. You talk about Eddie Lacy. You take Eddie Lacy out of that equation and even insert James Starks if you like. Starks was there the last time. Remember, he was the catalyst for the running game in the playoffs the season that they won the Super Bowl. They've got offensive continuity with Mike McCarthy pulling the strings. And remember, the head coach factors into continuity and chemistry as well. I don't know if there's a better group than Green Bay chemistry-wise in the NFC. You go to the AFC, and that's a tough one because there aren't many head coach quarterback combinations that have been together longer than Brady and Belichick yet. The players on the field have changed so much in New England, hard to say that the chemistry is there. They have so many guys that are in and out of lineup, so many guys that are new, like Tim Wright, like Brandon LaFell, that you expect a lot out of, but haven't been here very long. You still have some guys, some core guys, like I said, the Rob Ninkoviches of the world. You still have a guy like Julian Edelman, that's someone that Brady trusts and relies on heavily. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a group that has been together longer than the Patriots core. You look at Pittsburgh, I see a lot of guys that have been there for a long time that get it, that understand, but there's still a lot of young guys coming in and that's part of the reason why they've been so inconsistent. You got the older guys that might be past their prime, and then you got the younger guys that just don't know any better and can't stay healthy. So I guess I'd go with New England in the AFC, and I'd go with Green Bay in the NFC. I think those are the two teams with the most chemistry. And really, I'm looking at it strictly from a coach, quarterback, and a couple of guys that have been there that are the foundation of the football team. And I think in both instances, you can say that they have a nucleus between head coach, quarterback, and some of the other parts on the football team being there as leaders in those locker rooms. You go to Mark S. Mark S. had a question. What offensive and defensive coordinator would you want to go with your head coach of your choice? So you're asking me for a head coach, OC, and DC. So you're asking for all three here. His three were head coach Mike Pettin, offensive coordinator Pep Hamilton of the Indianapolis Colts, and defensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills, Jim Schwartz. So those were his three picks for those three positions. I would fill those positions differently. Right now, as a head coach, I would probably lean towards Bruce Arians. I really like what he's doing in Arizona. Hell, give me Arians and their defensive coordinator right now as well. I think that those two are doing a phenomenal job of getting the most out of their respective groups. And so Todd Bowles as my defensive coordinator right now, and my head coach is Bruce Arians. Offensive coordinator. Offensive coordinator. That's a really good question. There are a couple of offensive coordinators, but you know what? I want to cheat. I really want to cheat and take a head coach, because there are head coaches that are play callers, but they're not offensive coordinators. They're head coaches, and they have play calling duties and responsibilities, but they're still an offensive coordinator on their staff. So I won't go there. I won't cheat. You asked me for an offensive coordinator, and I will take, you know what? Give me Kyle Shanahan right now, Cleveland Browns offensive coordinator, because I made a big mockery of this Cleveland Browns football team before the season started about the lack of receivers, about having no true quarterback. What were you doing at running back? You had a bunch of no names and Ben Tate, who's no longer even on the roster. He's done a phenomenal job. And I thought that in 2012, when Robert Griffin III came into the league and took the league by storm and won Rookie of the Year, Kyle Shanahan was the mastermind behind that game plan as well. I just love what he's doing right now. I mean, there's no reason for the Browns to be 7-5 right now with what they've had to endure. No Jordan Cameron for most of the season. No big-time threat out there. You take away Josh Gordon off that football team, and it was just a bunch of guys getting it done. I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to name 2 receivers on that football team before Josh Gordon entered back into that lineup. So to see them do what they've done this season with the parts that they've had and some of the parts be missing. I mean, at tight end, they had to endure Gary Barnidge and Jim Dre for the majority of the season. The running game has been running back by committee, and yet Billy Ho has been pulling the strings and getting it done up until late. So I think I'll take Kyle Shanahan right now. I mean, he's done the most with the least in the league, and I think, to me, that's the mark of great coaching. When you can get the most out of having the less, when you can get the most out of having the least amount of talent, to me that speaks volumes about the head coach, or in this case, the offensive coordinator. Give me Kyle Shanahan. Ofo, really? My man Ofo, what is going on? His question was simply, is the NFC stronger or the AFC stronger this season? If you're asking me top to bottom, that's not up for debate. The AFC is stronger top to bottom. If you're asking me which conference is the power conference, which is a totally different question, because the question that I think you're asking me is, who's the power conference? If you're asking me for the most consistent conference, is the AFC, because you look at the NFC, you've got a whole division that's not over 500, which isn't the case in the AFC. Every division has a respectable and reputable team in it, holding it up, whether it be the AFC South with just really the Colts. And you got the Texans at 6-6. That's nothing to scoff at. But the bottom 2 teams in that division, not any good. But in the NFC, you've got that South, and that's just pathetic. Then you've got the NFC East. You got 2 teams that are just bottom feeders in that division, but you got 2 really good teams in the Eagles and the Cowboys. So if you're asking me who's the power conference, I would tell you that the NFC is more top heavy. So I look at the NFC as the stronger conference. Here's why. You look at the NFC, there's 3 9-3 teams. Arizona, you could argue they're falling off. I haven't jumped off of the Arizona Cardinals bandwagon yet. They're 9-3. Eagles, 9-3. You also look at another team that I think is probably the cream of the crop in the NFC, and that's Green Bay, 9-3. Then you go to the 8-4s. Seattle, Super Bowl defending champion Seattle Seahawks, 8-4. Detroit Lions may play the best defense. And I throw those 2 games out of the window on the road against Arizona and against New England. I think they're a better football team than they showed in those games. Defensively, I think this team is lights out. And when they're fully healthy, they'll get Nick Fairley back at some point. and they'll get all of their parts back. Reginald Bush will get back. This is a different team. They're 8-4. Dallas 8-4. Have a chance to go to 9-4. I think they're going to beat Chicago on Thursday night to go to 9-4. So you're talking about 6 teams right there in the playoff hunt. Nobody less than 8-4. You're talking about a 7 seed in the Cowboys who is 8-4 as well. You've got the 49ers who, look, I know they don't score any points, but they're still a very solid football team. They're sitting there at 7-5. I just like that group right there, those 8. I like those 8 better than I like the top 8 in the AFC. And really, you can't even give me a top 8 because there are about 4 or 5 teams at 7-5. And really, I can pick apart those 7-5 teams and tell you why this team can't do it, why that team can't do it, why that team can't do it. And so because I don't believe in Cincinnati in the AFC. They're 8-3-1, and I think they're a fraud. I don't like Cincinnati at all. So I really don't respect them like I should. Love New England, love Denver. Of course, those two are the cream of the crop in the AFC. I'm not in love with Indianapolis. I don't think they can perform on the big stage. When they've had big-time football games, they've choked in every single one of them. Lost to Denver, lost to Pittsburgh, lost to New England. They don't beat the good teams. They beat the mediocre teams. So I don't respect Indy either. So their top group isn't as strong to me as the NFC's top group. So give me the NFC as the stronger conference. Give me the AFC as the more consistent from top to bottom conference. Last question. Robbie Sohal asked, best football movie ever. His selection, Remember the Titans. Remember the Titans gives me goosebumps. That's a really good selection there because my high school, our name was Titans. Our nickname was the Titans. So I was actually in high school when that movie came out. Our coach took us to the movies as a team to go see it. So that's a goosebump movie for me. I get goosebumps when I watch that movie. Really good movie. Really good selection. But for me, my favorite, and this is old school, most of you have seen this, some of you probably have not. My favorite football movie of all time is The Program. College movie, kind of loosely based on, college life in the 80s. I think the movie was made in like 1993. So, and I like to think it was loosely based off of a guy like The Boss. And some of the storylines and plots in the movie were based off of different characters. And it's a really good movie. I love the Program. And so that's my favorite football movie. Now, we're going to move to the what if from a month ago. The last time we did this, and remember, it was a beautiful what if given to us by Michael Caine. He said, if you could put together the ultimate team, the ultimate franchise, what would it consist of? And I'll give you his, I'll give you mine, and then I'll give you the list of people that responded and what they said. And so Michael Caine offered up Denver for his front office. His coaches were the Ravens. His offensive line, Dallas. Quarterbacks, Green Bay. Kansas City running back group, wide receivers, Denver. San Diego was his defensive line. His linebackers were, tight ends. He left tight ends off the list last time. And this time he answered back, hey, give me San Diego for the tight ends. Defensive line is Detroit. Arizona linebackers, DBs, secondary is New England. And he followed up and finished up with the special teams unit of the Philadelphia Eagles. Really solid group from top to bottom. Of course, I had some changes to mine. Front office for me, Baltimore Ravens. Coaches, San Francisco. I actually think that I would lean more heavily towards Arizona between what their defensive coordinator has done, their head coach has done, and what they've been able to do with the team and all the injuries. I think you got to go with the Arizona Cardinals, but I said San Francisco. I'll keep San Francisco. Offensive line, Dallas. Indianapolis for the quarterbacks, Kansas City for the running backs, wide receiver, Denver, tight end, New England, defensive line, Jets, linebackers, San Francisco, DBs, secondary, Seattle, and special teams, Kansas City. So now let's run down the list of people who responded. I thank each and every single one of you for your responses. And this is the most participation we've ever had for a what if. So that's how you know that this was a very intriguing what if to many people. Robbie Sohal answers Baltimore front office, coaches, New England, Dallas O-line, quarterbacks, Indy, running backs, Kansas City, wide receivers, Denver or Detroit, New England for his tight ends, Detroit for his defensive line, Seattle for his DBs, linebackers, San Francisco, special teams, Kansas City. I don't have an argument there. That's a solid group, top to bottom. Jan Norman responds with the following. Front office, Denver. Coaches, New England. Offensive line, Dallas. Quarterbacks, Denver. I have a problem there. I'm not talking about individual players, talking about whole skill groups. So if Peyton Manning goes down, do you trust Brock Osweiler to win you football games? The answer is no. You can't select that whole group and feel confident. You can select Peyton Manning and feel confident, but you're asking about a whole group. I tend to disagree there, but he went with Denver. Dallas for his running backs. Can't argue there. Denver for his receivers, Denver for his tight ends, Denver for his defensive line, San Francisco for his linebackers, DBs, Seattle didn't give me a special teams. Guess who his favorite team was? I told you guys stay away from being homers. I won't beat Jan up for being a homer because Denver is actually good in all of the areas that he selected them. So won't beat him up, but you can tell whose team some of these people's, are because of how they listed some of these. You're like, come on, really? Seriously? You're picking that team to be for that position? Come on. Mark S. Guess who his favorite team is? Front office, Buffalo. Coaches, Cleveland. Offensive line, Dallas. Quarterbacks, Indy. Running back, New Orleans. Wide receivers, Buffalo. Tight end, New England. Defensive line, Buffalo. Linebackers, San Francisco. Defensive backs, Cleveland. Special teams, Buffalo. Guess who his favorite team is? Now, I have a problem with his. I'm not in love with the Bills special teams unit. They can bust one every now and again. When C.J. Spiller is healthy, you would have loved to have seen Marquise Goodwin be that guy, but he hasn't been. But they're okay everywhere else. They're not great. Their punting situation isn't the best. I really like their field goal kicking situation, but it's not the best. So, again, that was being a homer right there. But, look, you won't get many objections from me with his list. I like the Cleveland Browns for the coaches. I just talked about offensive coordinator Kyle Shanahan and the job he's doing. I love Mike Patton, so no arguments there. I actually thought that the defensive backs in Cleveland, that's actually a really solid. He's the only one to pick Cleveland. That's actually a really solid pick because you got Joe Hayden out there. Only problem I have with them is they don't have that other corner. He was going off of potential with the pick that they made in Justin Gilbert. Then you got, of course, one of the young upcoming stars in the league at the safety position in Tashawn Gibson. So they've got some talent in that secondary. That's solid, but there are a couple of iffy picks in there. Front office Bills, I don't think so there either. So, Money Miz, 14, goes with the following. Front office Seattle, can't argue with what they've done over the last 5 years. Coaches, Arizona, can't argue there either. That's probably who I should have selected. Offensive line, Dallas. Quarterbacks, Atlanta, got a problem with that. Matt Ryan goes down. You're not trusting T.J. Yates. Look, Tyler Jonathan Yates, solid quarterback, not a great quarterback. I'll take my chances elsewhere with a backup around the league before I get to Tyler Jonathan Yates. So I have a problem with Atlanta there, but Buffalo running backs don't have a problem with that. Receivers, Denver. Tight ends, Cleveland. I don't think so. And his explanation was, look, Jordan Cameron went down and Jim Dre and Gary Barnett stepped up. Granted, they did that. but they're still not the best tight end group in the league. I can't. But look, this is your opinion. I can't tell you how to feel, but I would not have selected Cleveland there. Buffalo defensive line, no arguments there. San Francisco linebackers, defensive backs. Seattle special teams, Kansas City. So that's a really solid selection there of groups. Atlanta is the most iffy of that group. I could slide by with the tight end group of Cleveland when Jordan Cameron's healthy, but I can't go with the Atlanta one. Brian Emerson, front office Denver, coaches Arizona, offensive line Dallas, quarterbacks Indy, running backs first Philadelphia entry we have. That is a really good group. Okay, doesn't get much better than Shady and Mighty Mike at the running back position as a tandem. Wide receiver, Denver did not give a tight ends group. Arizona as the defensive line. Linebacker, San Francisco, Seattle, defensive backs, and Philadelphia special teams. That's a really solid collection there as well. At said 16, Baltimore front office, New England coaches, Dallas O-line, New England quarterbacks. Don't know about that one. I love Brady. I don't love the backup situation in New England right now. Jimmy Garoppolo, untested, unproven. Can't go there. Kansas City running backs, wide receivers in Pittsburgh. Baltimore tight ends. He says, got to have a healthy Dennis Pitta. I can see that with Owen Daniels there, and then you got Crockett Gilmore as a rookie. That's a really solid group right there if Dennis Pitta is healthy. Miami defensive line, San Francisco linebackers, Miami defensive backs, and Kansas City special teams. Those are some interesting picks, especially the Miami picks. He's a Miami Dolphins fan, so he goes with the defensive backs of Miami. They're the best in the league right now. They're the best to do it. I think Brent Grimes is playing at a really high level, one of the best corners in the league right now. So I can't really argue with that. I think that right now, though, they got some injuries. I saw R.J. Sanford out there on Monday Night Football, so a little iffy about them. But Louis Delmas has come in and made the world of difference in that secondary. They've been playing top-notch football this season. Football man, San Diego, guess who his favorite team is? Front office, San Diego. Can't argue with what Tommy T and that group has done. Tom Telesco has come in and changed the face of that franchise. Can't argue with that. Coaches, San Diego. Offensive line, Dallas. Quarterbacks, Washington. Whoa. I'm a Redskins fan. I wouldn't do that if I were you. I made a comment earlier in the season, and he made mention of this, that I said that any one of my quarterbacks can go out and win you a game. Absolutely true. But would you put either one of those quarterbacks, any one of those three quarterbacks in the game to win you a game? You had to win one game. Would you trust any of those quarterbacks to go out and win you that game? The answer to that is no. So, no, Washington can't be. They don't even have a decisive number one quarterback. And they got a bunch of backups right now. So, no, that can't be right. Running backs, San Diego. Wide receivers, Green Bay, the only person to select Green Bay. That is a hell of a choice. Hell of a choice. Jordy Nelson, to me, most underrated receiver in the league. Randall Cobb, what doesn't this guy do? Devontae Adams coming along nicely. They've got a lot of talent at receiver in Green Bay. Tight end, San Diego. Defensive line, Jets. Linebackers, San Francisco. Seattle's defensive backs, and Kansas City's special teams. Q-Bone Football, what up, Q? He goes with Baltimore front office, San Francisco coaches, Dallas offensive line, Denver quarterback situation. Again, I don't trust Brock Osweiler. Philadelphia running backs, another Philadelphia entry. Love that selection. Atlanta wide receivers, a lot of talent there. The only Atlanta on the list. Again, another talented group between Roddy White, Julio Jones, and Harry Douglas. There's some talent in Atlanta at the wide receiver position. New England tight ends, Buffalo defensive line, San Francisco linebackers, defensive backs, in Seattle, and special teams St. Louis. That's a great list outside of the quarterback position. Don't really love the quarterbacking of Denver after Peyton Manning. And so that's the answers that I got. Man, that was a lot of responses. I love it. That was great. Oh man, you guys did a wonderful job with that. I was expecting guys to be more of homers. I'm glad that it wasn't egregious to the point where I had to start calling individuals out for their behavior. So good job on the part of you guys for making sure you tried to stay as unbiased as possible. And so I leave you with the what if for next week, and this is given to us by Cubone Football. And he gave us a soliloquy. I mean, he went to work on this one, and he said, hey, I worked really hard on this one, so give me a shot. And that I will. I've got my smartphone here to help me with this what if question. Very lengthy. Cubone Football took his time, very thorough with this what if question. So all you have to do is listen, because what he's doing is laying the groundwork and giving you some background information as to what you should do at the end. So it's helping you make your decision. So you just got to listen to the information. It'll help you gain a better understanding of the situation and help you figure out what you want to do and how you want to answer this what if question. So going to use the smartphone to help me with this because it's a lot, very lengthy, but again, all helpful information to help you decide on what you want to do with this what if question given to us by Cubone Football in week 14. Here we go. You are the new head coach of a 5-11 football team. So you come in, you inherit a 5-11 football team. This is a very talented team. And all they're missing is a quarterback. That's the missing link. The quarterback currently on the roster, not very good. Didn't play well. Don't feel like he's the future of this franchise. You don't have any ties to him when you come in, so you release him. So now you need a starting quarterback. So you look around and you say, hey, what can we do? First thing you try to exhaust, free agency. You look on the free agent market, not a franchise quarterback in sight. There never is on the free agent market. However, you say to yourself, hey, there's a veteran out here that we feel like can come in, upgrade the quarterback position, and help us tremendously if we bring him in. And he's also not going to cost us a lot of money either. Problem is with this veteran, not a lot of football left on those tires. Not a lot of tread on those tires. Not a lot of good football left. But he's the guy that will upgrade the quarterback position. You also have another option. There's a team out there with a young quarterback on their roster that they're not currently using. He's never been a starter in this league, but there's a lot of upside there. And if given the opportunity, he could flourish in this league. Problem is, that team wants a second round pick for his services. And you don't have a lot of picks coming up in this upcoming draft. You could use that second round pick for depth on your own roster. So do you feel comfortable giving up that second round pick to get an unproven commodity at the quarterback position? That's an option. Also, you look around and you say to yourself, man, this draft doesn't have a lot of talent at the quarterback position. In fact, there's only one guy that everybody's talking about. Highly touted, one of those can't miss prospects at the quarterback position. Problem is he comes with red flags. Gotta watch out for him. He could be a boom or bust guy. But the talent, undeniable. The off the field stuff, you could really bypass a lot of that. However, you're not the number one selection. You don't have it. You need the number one pick to get this guy because he's that highly sought after. So in order to get him, you're going to have to put together a Rams type package. They're looking for King's ransom a la the Robert Griffin III trade. So you're going to have to put together a nice stimulus package to get your hands on that quarterback. Again, you already don't have a lot of picks to begin with. Going to be pretty tough to mortgage the future to get this one guy, not knowing if he's going to be able to control himself off the field. So you've got a decision to make there. So now you look at this situation and you say to yourself, what to do, what to do, what to do. So now here are your options, okay? I've basically explained them to you, but here's your options. A, do you play it safe, sign the veteran who has probably about 2 years left in him on the cheap, keep your draft picks, roll with the veteran and see what happens? Can he take you to the postseason? That's a short-term option, though. Do you B, trade your second-round pick? You could use that pick for depth on your roster. Keep in mind, you don't have a lot of picks. That guy could come in, could be exactly what you think he could be, or he could be someone that turns out to be a journeyman backup for you. Going to take a second-round pick to find out. Or C, do you take the gamble, trade for the number 1 overall selection, give up a bunch of picks, and pray that this guy doesn't go stupid when you pay him the money and understands what it takes to be an NFL quarterback? So that's a huge risk, but the reward could be that this guy comes in and lights it up for years to come, including his rookie season. Come in, take this team straight to the postseason. You don't know, but it could happen. What is your selection? Which one of those options? I'll read them one more time and then we'll get out of here. A, you could play it safe, sign the veteran. Got 2 years left of football in him. Maybe he takes you to the postseason. Maybe he doesn't. He's on the cheap and you keep your draft picks. B, do you trade for that young quarterback on another roster that going to cost you a second-round pick? Could be the face of the franchise, could be a journeyman backup when it's all said and done. Going to take a second-round pick to find out. Or do you go with C? You draft that can't-miss prospect with the red flags, but you got to trade up to number 1, got to give up King's ransom, fork over some picks, lose some depth on this roster via the draft, and hope that this guy works out and isn't a knucklehead when he gets to the NFL. Which one you going with? Decisions. So many decisions. I know what I'm doing. Cubone knows what he's doing. I'll give you both of those answers the next time we reconvene on this program. I thank you for joining me. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the Lab Room. I'll see you next Thursday here on this program. Enjoy the football. I'll be back Friday with picks, among other things, the breakdown of the Thursday night game. You know how this goes. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.